My daughter's names are Hazel Marie and Violet Jane. Yeah, Hazel had the longest, blondest, straightest eyelashes when she was born. And Violet had just the tiniest little fingers. Everything about her was tiny.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Welcome to Still a Part of Us. We are so grateful that you are joining us here with us today. And today we are want to welcome Kat. She reached out to us a little while ago and wanted to share the story of her twins. And I am so grateful because this doesn't actually happen too often. So super grateful that she is willing to share and lend support to others that might be going through this situation. So Kat, thank you so much for coming on. And we're so grateful that you're here.
Thanks for having me. So nice to have a platform to share.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Just like, we want to talk about our kids. So
Yeah.
Kat, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you guys are from and what your family looks like, and maybe at the time of the twins' birth, like what did your family look like then?
Sure. Yeah. So we live in a little city, Martinsville, Saskatchewan in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, at the time of their birth, my daughter was 3. Her name's Eleanor, and we have 2 beloved dogs as well, Duke and Gus,
Oh,
and then my husband David. Yeah, that's our little family.
wonderful. And so you guys are in Canada, and
Mhm.
what do you guys like to do there? What do you guys like to do as a family, or like any hobbies, that type of thing?
Yeah, we're very outdoorsy people.
Mm-hmm.
So in the summertime, a lot of gardening, a lot of camping, I mean, we're outside in the winter a lot as well. We have these 2 big dogs that need to be walked every day. And so that's always been,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of an everyday thing. And yeah, in the winter, I sew a little and I kind of dabble with some other crafty things. And yeah, so I like to do that kind of stuff is reserved for the winter time.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do when it's cold and dark.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a little bit of, background, just so that people can kinda orient themselves. When were Hazel and Violet born at the time of this recording? About how many years ago? I mean, or how long
Yeah,
ago?
just a little over 2 years now. They were
Yeah,
born August 29th,
okay,
2021. Yeah.
perfect. Okay, so you guys had Eleanor and, at the time, and
Yeah.
she's a little toddler. Were the twins planned? Tell me how that all went down. Any issues with fertility when you were, thinking about adding to your family?
Yeah, so in the year before that, I had had 2 miscarriages,
Oh, okay.
and, I think sort of the red flags start to go off with doctors as far as, like, medical standpoint around, like, 3 miscarriages, but my doctor had ordered an HSG, which is like an X-ray of your fallopian tubes in your uterus, where
Uh-huh.
they inject a dye and just kinda see if there's any, like, issues with scarring or something that may
Yeah.
cause miscarriages. So I had that procedure and they didn't find anything. And then right after that, yeah, I got pregnant with the twins, which I think is common. It's kind of like cleans out your system a little bit as well. And it's common that like you're more likely to get pregnant then too. I mean, getting pregnant was never really a problem for us.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah. But we did have 2 prior miscarriages. So they were
So
earlier, 7 and 8 weeks. So
but still miscarriages also,
of
bring a
course.
level of sadness and grief and just
Yeah.
that
Kinda
hope.
coming into this pregnancy, there was a lot of that, like that, just kinda waiting for, uh, I know my husband would say he'd just wait to hear like me crying in the bathroom or something.
Oh,
It happened a few times, and just you're always kind of on pins and needles
yeah.
in any pregnancy following a loss of any kind. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It really just, puts you on guard. When
Mhm.
you found out you were pregnant with twins, was that a bit of a surprise? Because I would be like, oh, wait, I was not expecting that.
Well, so I had some blood work done immediately, like once the test was positive, and my doctor had ordered a ultrasound right away, which I
Hmm.
thought was early because it's usually not until later on in the
Yeah.
pregnancy. So I don't know if there were some levels that were spiking just with added hormones or what, but it was an earlier scan, somewhere around like 7 weeks or something, I
Okay.
believe. And so I went into the appointment, and the text just asked me, like, are there twins in your family? And my husband had said, he kind of called it like, wouldn't that be crazy if we had twins? Because I'm a twin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I think as a fraternal twin, the female, because I have a brother, a twin
Uh-huh.
brother,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to have twins. So yeah, anyway, we always kind of wondered what that would be like. And yeah, and I called him. It was still COVID, right? So he didn't come
Yeah.
with me at that appointment. I called him, and I was like, guess what? He's like, shut up. That was his reaction. Like he knew it. I didn't even say
He didn't even say
it.
it. Oh, that is so funny.
Yeah, I couldn't. I wanted to surprise him in some fun, exciting way, but I just couldn't. I was just shaking, and yeah,
Yeah.
your whole like world flashes before your eyes when you hear
Yeah.
that you're gonna have twins, and yeah.
It is wild. So my
Hmm.
my husband Lee, he has a set of twins in his family. His sisters are twins, and it's just like, yep, it's a whole different world when you
Yeah,
add the twins on. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, that is exciting though. Yeah, because then you're just
yeah.
like double the fun, double the diapers, double the everything.
Oh yes, yeah. I started stocking up with because we do cloth diapers as well,
Oh,
or we had with Eleanor. We're like,
yeah,
well, we'll see how it goes. We're gonna give it a good, like, honest shot. So we stocked up. We had a
awesome.
lot ready for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Okay, well, and then I'm assuming that you guys were super excited. Did you end up telling family, and did you start telling people that you were expecting twins? Because
Um,
that's
we
big news.
well, yeah, we did wait until the 12 weeks just because of our history. It was sort of like I don't think we told many people. I think when I got to work, I went from work to this appointment and then back to work after.
Yeah.
And my boss actually, I was just, he could tell something was going on. And I told him like right away, like, yeah, like I don't even know what to do with this information. And my brain was just like exploded. So yeah, but beyond that, our family, we waited till the 12 weeks, and then it was fun to deliver that news. Like,
Oh yeah, I bet. I
yeah.
bet they were so excited. Are your
Yeah.
families nearby in Canada, or are they kind of all over the place?
Yeah, they're close. My parents live about like 20 minutes away, and David's
Okay.
about 45, 40.
Awesome.
So, yeah, they're
Okay.
both pretty close.
That's
Hmm.
great. Yeah, that's nice to have that support nearby.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had that early scan, you had
Mhm.
that confirmation that you're having twins, and then did you end up going in for, I think usually it's around 8 to 9 weeks that you have your first official doctor's appointment. Is that when you had
Yeah,
that
we had
first
the
checkup?
appointment. They listened. We got to hear the heartbeats and stuff, like both separately. So it took a little longer to find all
Yeah.
that.
I have never
Yeah,
thought of
that was.
that before, but I was like, that would be probably difficult actually to find their heartbeats.
Yeah, yeah. Just depending on where they're sitting, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then our next appointment was until the 20-week anatomy.
Okay. And
And oh, sorry.
I was gonna just say, Kat actually mentioned this, but I just want to point out that this was COVID times, and so
Mhm.
it is like there was a lot of restrictions. So it sounded like your husband couldn't come to the first scan. And how about
Mhm.
any of the other scans at that time? Because this was in 2021. I mean, 2020, 2021. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So he couldn't come to the first one, but the anatomy scan by then they had started to open up, and we were
Okay.
allowed to bring one support person. And actually, this all sort of unfolded in this like magical little pocket of time where things were slowly starting to open up. So by the time they were born, we were able to have like more people in the
Oh,
room
good.
with us. And yeah, we were very lucky because I've heard, yeah, it doesn't work out that way for a lot of people. So at least in our city in Saskatoon,
Yeah.
that's where the hospital is. And yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so he came right for that anatomy scan, which I don't know how I would have made it through that without him, because that's where everything, yeah, the story began, I guess.
yeah. Up until that point, how are you feeling? Like with uh, morning sickness or any kind of weird, pregnancy symptoms?
Yeah, I never had a lot of nausea or anything like that. I got lucky, but I just exhausted. I was
Yes.
so exhausted. I mean, we also had a 3-year-old too, so
Yes.
that adds to that as well. But yeah,
Completely.
I just it knocked me out.
Yeah, I am sure
Yeah,
it did. And you're working and all it just sounds like you were
yeah,
busy.
yeah.
Okay, well then let's talk about the anatomy scan. So it was at 20 weeks exactly or around that
It
time?
just, I think, yeah, it was just about exactly around the 20, which it felt like such a long wait
Yes.
when, especially for David, because with Eleanor, he came to every appointment. So like him not being able to come to the first two was like, he was just so excited
Yeah.
to see
Finally.
them and
Yeah.
hear the heartbeat. That was always such a special thing that we loved with Eleanor. And so he was really excited to hear that. And yeah.
Yay. Okay. So tell me how the scan went. How did those events unfold?
Yeah, so my daughter stayed at my parents' house, and then we kind of went for a nice breakfast, and it's right kind of by the river, and the clinic is like on the other side of the river. So the appointment after that, they did their little scan, and there was just certain areas that they kept kind of going over and over again, and the
Mm,
tech was not very communicative. Like, we went in there with just this like excitement and wanting to like, we're just chatty and joking around.
yeah.
She was pretty serious, and like in hindsight I see all that, and in the moment I was like, well, that was kind of like disappointing. Where when you get a dud of a tech who just like isn't
Yeah.
talking and
Yeah.
won't laugh at our little silly jokes, and yeah, I don't know. And then she kind of rushed out, and yeah, we felt a little gypped of our experience just because it
Yeah.
was shorter than we expected, and like
Right.
it was, she had obviously seen there were some issues with Hazel.
Yeah. Yeah, I was because I was like, I don't know if you like 20-week scans are long.
Hmm.
And I would suspect that ones with twins would take even longer than that. And so
Yep.
how quickly did she look around and then go out to talk to the
Yeah, like
doctor?
it was a long enough amount of time, I would say. Um, I mean, honestly, there's so much in that time that was just such a blur. But I just remember it. We had prepared a lot more time because it's twins. They
Yeah.
kind of told us to block out about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, just so they could find everything they needed to find. And then, yeah, it was probably 45 minutes when we were out of there.
Oh, yeah. Lots.
Yeah.
That's pretty short.
So yeah, yeah. And then we kind of, yeah, went in. The doctor was going to meet with us after the scan, and she sat down and said, yeah, just baby A is like perfect. There's, developing as she should, and that's where she started. But with baby B, we noticed there's an issue. That's what the tech had noticed, and so yeah. And then, so what the issue was, it's a neural tube defect, and anencephaly. So
Oh,
her
okay.
skull didn't fully form. So it's pretty noticeable on a scan,
Uh-huh.
where you see like the rounded head. It was
Yeah.
just kind of like cut here, sort of.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think that's called acrania. Her brain wouldn't develop properly. Um, she was still alive, but once she was born, she wouldn't be able to survive.
Yeah.
And so we were just sort of like stunned.
Right.
And yeah, so from there, they wanted to send us to the maternal fetal medicine in the hospital because they have just better technology there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the next day that we would have a second scan to confirm. So there's always that when you're going to confirm something that's like essentially a death sentence for one of your babies, like
Yeah.
there's always this piece of hope that you're kind of holding on to,
Yeah.
even though the like, she sounded sure. but she couldn't say for sure without that secondary scan.
Mm.
So yeah. And I just like that it felt like this like closing in of this, like everything kind of got black around us. And then it was just the two of us in this room talking to this doctor, telling us that one of the babies was going to die. And then we had to still walk from that room through the like the waiting area to our car. And that part, I didn't know how to leave that room. I remember just like, I was just a wreck, obviously, and I didn't want the other women in the waiting room to feel that. It's just because it's twins, it's a high risk pregnancy.
Yeah.
And they're considered high risk. So a lot of the women in that office had fertility issues. And so I remember just looking at the floor and David holding my arm and walking and just thinking, like, just get to the car, like, hold it together until you get to the car. And then we sat down and we both just fell apart into each other and bawled in the parking lot. And I still, every time I drive by that clinic, I think of that parking lot. There's just places that you always think of after something like this happens. And yeah, that's one I always, it brings back a lot of feelings just driving by.
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, driving from there home, it's about a half-hour drive to our city. And I don't think we said a word all the way home. And we got home and our daughter was still with my mom. And so it was just like quieter in our home. And we just like wandered around, not knowing what to do. We like just crying off and on. And there's this image that I just think of when I think of that day, when I'm, preparing for this interview, is you go back in time to like everything that had happened. And what I remember about that day was we were in the kitchen sitting at the table and David just wasn't saying anything. He, just looking down at the table. We're both like, I was just crying and crying. And I came up behind him and I said, like, you can tell me what you're thinking if you want to. Like, I want to hear it if you want to tell me. And then I just like saw his shoulders like start to shake. Like, when you just can't hold your physical body, you can't hold that pain in anymore.
Yeah.
And he just started shaking and crying and saying, I wanted to plan for a baby room, not for a funeral. And that thought had not even crossed my mind yet. And so I just like remember that very vividly, seeing his shoulders shake, and I like wrapped my arms around him and we both just cried there. And then my mom ended up keeping Eleanor for the night so that we could just kind of be alone and process without needing to take care of a little girl, or scare her. We didn't know how we were gonna tell her all this too, right? And so just crying until you can't open your eyes. They're so swollen and they burn and like unbelievable amount of pain. And then thinking how do we carry on this pregnancy with another baby who's in there who deserves my nurturing and love when that was very difficult to try to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah, I just can't imagine. Yes, I can't imagine that those, like you said, a birth and a funeral that will be happening.
Yeah, and like that part of our life, I mean, it didn't. Yeah. I guess just trying to figure out how we're going to carry on the pregnancy, how we're going to tell our other child, the twin, about this baby who died that they never will know existed unless we carry on their memory. And you just sort of like that flash of life that you have when you find out you're having twins, it's all of a sudden just completely shattered, and it's a new, trying to figure out how that life is going to turn out. We're looking at minivans and figuring out, researching about sleep schedules with twins and breastfeeding versus like all the things you do when you're pregnant, and yeah, all kind of went away pretty quickly.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's shattered like that life is not anymore.
Yeah,
At that visit, obviously, you guys found out that both of them were girls. Is that right?
we did later. Yes, yeah,
Oh,
just
you did later. Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think once we found out, once we had our date of delivery that we're going to induce, that's when we decided we wanted to find out because we were going to wait to be surprised.
Oh,
That was always the plan. We did that
okay.
with Eleanor too, and didn't want to know. But then we just sort of wanted to find out so that we could kind of bond a little more and pick
Yeah.
out their names and call them by name with Eleanor and stuff too. So
Yeah.
because she was so involved, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very much like, every night she'd, have her little hand on my belly and sing to the babies. And yeah, it was because she was so involved. We had her come to the hospital as well to meet them when they arrived. So,
That's
and I'm
great.
so, so glad we did that. And that we had, like I said, this little pocket in the COVID times that she was able to be there.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
huge. Okay.
Mhm.
So what did the doctors, tell me about the confirmatory scan the following day. Um,
Yeah. I mean, we had prepared a little, like prepared as much as you can for the confirmation. And then just kind of any little glimmer of hope that we had was sort of gone. We met our doctor, Dr. Lane. She was like incredible, just kind, and I couldn't ask for a better doctor
oh, yeah.
to be there through us, to like
Yeah.
ride that wave with us, because
Yeah.
she was there for every appointment. And yeah, but yeah, she did the scan and confirmed, and same same little walk. I think they prepare a little better in that hospital.
Oh,
So you
okay.
go to your little waiting room, and they make sure there's no, moms bringing home their babies, and in that moment when you're leaving to the elevator.
Oh, okay. That's great. That is
Yeah,
a
it seemed
blessing.
like it seemed like it was thought out, because we after that we had to go every week for weekly scans just to check on where things were at, and every time it was, there was nobody around. And
Oh, that's good.
yeah, yeah, it was a tiny little, yeah, saving grace there.
Yeah. Um, so did you end up telling your family the news? Did you start telling people about what was going to happen? Because once again, that's like you guys are going to be anticipating a lot of grief along with some joy, but then your
Right.
families are doing the same thing too. They'll be, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I had to tell my mom because she had Eleanor
Yes,
and
yeah.
there was no way to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we told her, and just, maybe there's hope. Maybe, there's a lot of that. And so having to just gut check
Yeah.
other people who we had to tell, there's not, it's
Yeah.
not going to happen, the way
Yeah.
that we had all envisioned. And, she had twins too. So
Yeah.
the little life like played out for her that way.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah, and then we called David's parents, and I couldn't talk. Like David told them what was happening, and yeah, I pulled in a couple people at work into one of the offices that I trusted, and just told them what was going to happen, and if just so that somebody else was aware of what was going on.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that maybe they could spread the news to other people, because I
Yeah.
just didn't want to be, yeah, opening that wound when I was barely holding on every day,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
trying. And at the same time, yeah, because there's this other little baby that, there is some joy there that, you know, you're trying to hold on to.
Yeah.
But ripping that off every day for people who I don't know as well was, yeah, not something I wanted to do. So they were really great about that.
That's good. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
it's so such a
especially,
blessing having people
yeah,
that can support you in kind of all areas of your life just to
mhm,
yeah, because I
yeah,
don't know about you, but like work can be tricky because you're like, I'm trying to be focused on this and then thinking about
yeah,
these other things that are so can be all encompassing and devastating and yeah.
Yeah, and my boss actually he had lost a son
Oh,
stillborn as well. So yeah, so he uniquely was
wow.
able to understand.
Oh,
I mean, he's a very understanding and kind man, but like, yeah, that
especially, yeah.
added to it. So his wife reached out to me as well, and like we had many conversations. And yeah,
Oh, that's
they
a
were
blessing.
there. Yeah, they were there along the way with us too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. What was the plan that the doctor kind of set up for you? Because I know that, I mean, they're going to be watching that other the other baby pretty
Hmm.
closely,
Yeah,
to make sure she is thriving. So,
yeah,
what did they say about how to proceed?
yeah. Like they didn't. It didn't sound like they were. They didn't anticipate Hazel's condition would
Okay.
impact Violet at all.
Okay.
So yeah, they just wanted to keep an eye, and we wanted to kind of, yeah, I guess there was options. Options were like you could terminate the pregnancy, you could carry just as you are, keep going, and that's obviously what we had decided we were going to do, and try to, yeah, carry on the pregnancy and deliver both babies together.
Hmm.
So we had a plan for the next appointment to meet with the pediatric palliative care team,
Okay.
just so we would kind of understand what to expect when the girls were born. And then also a social worker was there as well, just to kind of talk us through that, like see if we needed anything and help us kind of um, find out how we were going to deliver the news to Eleanor because we hadn't done that yet.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And they were extremely, extremely helpful, like with like, suggestions of books for her because we were a big book reading family. So
Uh-huh.
I had, other like my boss's wife had given me suggestions of books too because her children were young as well when they had their son who passed away.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's who our plan was to meet with them, and then the genetic counselor as well,
Okay.
and then go in for our 24-week scan.
Okay.
So
Um, Genetic counselor, did you end up getting both of you guys looked at your genetic profile and
mhm.
to see what maybe happened or where it came down to? So both of you guys got genetic tested.
We did, yeah,
Okay.
we did, yeah, and yeah, they just wanted to see if there was anything in our DNA that would
Could have.
yeah, could cause any potential issues in the future because I think if we hadn't had the miscarriages as well, I'm
Oh,
not sure that this would have been
gotcha.
something they wanted to do, but it seemed just like there was a lot going on and they just wanted to,
Just
and we
clarify.
wanted to as well. I think it
Right.
was more our choice than their, like,
Okay.
they asked if we wanted that and we opted to, which I'm glad we did.
Okay. And
And yeah, sorry.
anything conclusive about with that?
No,
Okay.
no, there was nothing they could point to. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I know
which is
that.
good just to check that box too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
And this is kind of tricky because genetic testing is, I mean, they see everything sometimes, but they haven't identified which every single gene that causes maybe this or this or this, and
Yeah.
so they're probably just making sure at least things that they know so far is
Yeah.
um
And from what I understand, anencephaly, it's sort of just a lemon. It's a neural tube defect, so it kind of can happen or it doesn't happen
or
when they're
doesn't.
in their development.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of it to occur is pretty small
Yeah.
to reoccur in a pregnancy
Yeah.
again. So yeah. But yeah, so we did that. We had
Okay.
that testing done. And yeah, again, it's like just nice to know that there wasn't anything that they saw. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
to point to this. So,
And then did you guys end up telling Eleanor, how did that go? Because I know that's something that other families will have to navigate as well. So how did you
yeah.
guys end
Um,
up telling her?
so we hadn't told her yet. We were sort of waiting for this next scan just to, and like,
Oh, okay.
because our plan was to carry the pregnancy full term or as
As
far
long,
as they would allow.
yeah.
We had time and we just wanted it to be well thought out and researched. And there's an organization in Saskatoon called Empty Arms, which I can't even explain how helpful they were in navigating this part of our life. to this day, I'm still friends with some of the people that I had spoken with in those early days. And anyway, so they they have a little library of books and offered suggestions of things that I could we could walk down with Eleanor with. And like I said, the hospital provided kind of based on our belief, like we're not a religious family.
Mm-hmm.
So we just wanted to deliver it in a certain way that was like clear. You know, I didn't want to confuse her by saying they're sleeping, you know. You want to say that because that, you know, like
that can
because that's what they look like. But for a 3-year-old, everything's so black and white.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember after the girls were born, we went to the dentist, and the dentist asked, like, "Do you have any siblings, brothers or sisters?" And she's just like, "Yeah, 2 sisters, they died." And it sounds so harsh as an adult to receive that information, but for her,
that's what happened.
She has sisters and they're dead, you know, and people have asked me, like, you know, didn't that make you sad? And like, honestly, if she said no, you know, I don't have siblings, that would have broke my heart, you know. So to hear her, that's just how she thinks. And so, yeah, we had one book in particular, The Invisible String. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book.
Yes, it is a wonderful book. I agree.
Yeah, so that was a big one. That's one we still read often. There's one that's called like Lifetimes. So it just sort of explains that everything that ever lived has a beginning and an ending. So like little bugs, trees, and people. And so those are the two that we sort of leaned on when we were explaining to her.
Yeah. Okay.
So we hadn't told her yet until that 24-week scan.
Okay.
Which I'm glad we didn't, because at that scan, sort of found out about Violet. And so we didn't have to sort of have the conversation twice. And I feel like it would just be more confusing. So like, unluckily, we hadn't told her yet.
So tell us how that 24-week scan, you guys are up until that point, Violet was doing okay.
Well, they were, I mean,
both of them were doing,
everything was great. Everything was great.
Yeah.
She's developing great. Everything's where it's supposed to be, and no concerns there at all.
Okay. And so the 24-week scan was once again just another kind of routine, just keeping an eye on them. And was David able to go to that scan as well? Had he been able to go to everything from there?
Because so now we're transferred to the hospital, to the maternal fetal medicine. That's where we're going to carry on all of our appointments. And so because it was in the hospital, he was able to come
to
every appointment going forward. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So tell me about that scan when you guys went in for that.
So we go into our little waiting room, full bladder, you know how those, I just remember that. And just trying to keep it together and trying to, I mean, look at the positives, look at, you know, they're in there together, they're together. And I just remember the kind of self-talk you have in your head when you're going into these kind of appointments. And so she does her little swipe and runs out of the room. And me and Dave are just like, well, now we're not so naive. Like, what does that mean? It's Hazel died already? Like, because we knew that was a possibility. That she could die before we were able to deliver her. And so that's sort of what we assumed. And then the doctor came in and said, we're not seeing a heartbeat for baby A anymore. And Dave and I just fell apart again. And I couldn't believe it that, you know, like that was the last thing I would have expected. When she ran out of the room like that, you know, you're just so concentrated on this, like all the possibilities of what could happen with Hazel, and I never thought about Violet, about her other baby in there. And that day, I remember, she just kind of said, "I'm so sorry," and gave us the room. And then I had to go for some blood work after that too. And that day, I remember what sticks out in my mind is this nurse came into the room, Nurse Debbie, and she goes, "So you got some news you weren't expecting, hey?" And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
And she said, looks like you both need a mom hug. And like you just have to imagine during a pandemic, you go into these, like, you're getting this news behind a mask, all you can see is eyeballs and nobody will touch you. And she pulled us both in and hugged us, and we both just like fell apart. And it was just such a like compassionate thing to do, just to touch us, like the human touch.
Yeah.
When we like, yeah, found out about Violet, and I'll never forget her. It was just so kind, and she walked us to the room for the blood work and then walked us back to the elevator after.
Oh
I
man.
think just to make sure it was all clear. And yeah, yeah. So that sort of thinking back on that day, that's what I remember the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next day we told Eleanor.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, we sat her down and said, after the babies are born, they're not going to be able to come home with us. They won't survive. And I remember she cried a little, and then we were both crying. And she hopped off her bed and grabbed her two favorite animals. She has this beloved little sloth Doug and a bunny named Hop Hop. And she grabbed them both and gave them to Dave and I. And she was just like hugged us both. And
Oh.
yeah, there wasn't a lot of questions yet. I don't think she really understood, but fully what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But she knew that we needed a little comfort. And we used to do this, well, we still do it, like a cuddle sandwich. And she's like, I want to be the cheese. So she wanted to be in the middle and sing You Are My Sunshine.
Oh.
And so singing that song, I did not realize it was so sad until you're putting it in the context of like, yeah, um, yeah, I had a dream that I was sleeping and I held you in my arms. And when I woke, you were, yeah,
Yeah.
like,
It's
oh my
so.
God.
It is so sad.
A real gut check there, but it was
Yeah.
like, that's the thing that she loved when she was sad. She loved, her little stuffed animals in that song, and she wanted us to feel some comfort. I think that was her little way of, yeah. It was a really beautiful moment.
Yeah. Children are so. Yeah.
I know. She
They
uh
they say the
she
most
pulled us out
wonderful,
of,
and yeah, they
I
help you
know.
so much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like we didn't I don't think we put a lot of weight on her with this experience. Like we did try to make it. I mean, she made us make it more positive than we probably would have wallowed a lot more,
Yeah.
or openly. And because of her, we had to
Just
make it a wonderful experience for her too, because they're her sisters too. And
yeah.
yeah, she pulled us out of a lot of forced us to pull ourselves out of
Yeah.
a lot of darkness. And it was, yeah, I'll be grateful to her forever for that. You know?
Ah, I'm curious if the doctor that told you, at the time, baby A's, there was no heartbeat for baby A. What did they say about that? Did you like
Yeah, they couldn't see any reason at that time for her heart stopping.
nothing?
Um, no. So until they were born, we didn't know,
Anything?
yeah, what
Okay.
had happened. Yeah. So then we decided, so we had more decisions to make. We could deliver that day if we
Yeah.
wanted to. But well, that just wasn't an option with Eleanor because like I said, she's so like involved and excited, and rocking her little big sister shirt already all the time. And just we just had to prepare ourselves. And because Violet had passed away and Hazel was going to, it was sort of like we didn't have to rush that. And our doctor, Dr. Lane, she never made us feel pressured to rush, and talked us through like everything in such detail, like sort of what
Yes.
we could expect, so we could make an informed decision
Yeah.
about how to move forward. So what we ultimately decided, and again, a lot of this in between stuff was, listening to your podcast, talking to women who had been through it, talking to Empty Arms. I had a couple of people there that I would chat with, have questions about, because we had to plan, what to do with them after they were born, as well as the actual birth itself.
Yeah.
It was like kind of research, I guess, call it. Yeah. So we decided that we wanted to wait longer to carry Hazel as far as we could,
Yeah.
so that she had the best chance of being born alive, even like for a minute. We just wanted her. We just wanted her to take her last breath with in our arms. Is sort of
Yeah.
what our goal was. And she wasn't strong enough yet that they didn't think that was possible. So we wanted to wait for that, but also because we knew we wanted Eleanor to meet them. We didn't want Violet to like change too much that, you know, it would be scary or, not recognizable.
Yeah.
So they were monitoring us like every week after that,
Mhm.
going for a scan and just kind of see how the girls were doing. And yeah.
When did the doctors, Dr. Lane, think that it would be appropriate to maybe schedule an induction? I mean, because you found out at 24 weeks, this was at the 24-week scan,
Yeah.
that Violet, baby A, had passed away.
Yeah.
So when did she think it appropriate? Usually, like, if they're wanting to make sure lungs are developed and everything, that's 37 weeks. And so when did they think it was?
Well, we went into it was 4 weeks later, so 28 weeks
Mhm.
for that scan that week. And she said, Violet is starting to change a little bit.
Okay.
You can tell that, like, yeah, I guess decomposing a little
Yes.
bit.
Yeah.
And so she said, like, yeah, it's time. Like, if that's the goal is like, what we're aiming for, then it's time. So
Okay.
yeah, we went home and got all our things together in a couple days and made an appointment for 2 days and then I think like on the
Okay.
weekend.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So right
And
around 28 weeks or so,
yeah, it was
29.
28 weeks and 2 days, I think.
Okay.
Something like that we went. So 28 weeks was the scan and then we went in a couple days later
Okay.
to deliver. Yeah.
And I just like you said before, it's like we're doing research now of
Yeah.
what needed to happen
Yeah.
before you guys went into the hospital to be induced. Did you end up, I guess, had you made any sort of plans?
Yeah. Well, so there was like little things that we wanted to
Yeah.
do that, and this is a term I think I heard in when I spoke with these people at Empty Arms, just like it's a mothering, mothering your little things that because, in the dark days, hearing these diagnoses, like I remember just feeling like a failure as a mother, like you're supposed to keep these babies safe. And that's all I'm built to do. And then, one hit after another, you're not able to do that anymore. And you don't know what that means as a mother. And then the planning part was sort of healing for us as well. So I'm grateful we had time to really think about what was right for our family. So the social worker gave us a little lion to put with a recording of Hazel's heartbeat in it for
Oh.
Eleanor.
Oh.
And then I wanted to find just something for her to wear when she came to the hospital, just to make it something special for her. And I just randomly found this little lion dress
Oh.
that was green, which is her favorite color, and it was on sale. And so I bought that for her, and I wanted to find like swaddle blankets for them. Like I said, I wanted to make them outfits, but I had no idea what size they would be,
Yeah.
where to even start. I didn't want to like pick out one for Hazel and not one for Violet, so I just couldn't imagine doing that. And so I landed on swaddle blankets for them. I did make them little hats,
Mm.
but they were way too big.
Oh, really?
I definitely underestimated how tiny they would be. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they never wore them. They're packed away in their little box with all the special mementos and stuff.
Yeah.
And Eleanor wanted to pick out little bunnies or little stuffed animals to bring for them as a
Mhm.
gift. And she picked out little mini versions of her Hop Hop bunny.
Oh, cute.
They were so cute. Yeah. They've become like in our family photos, there's the bunnies are there.
Oh,
They
that is
are little
perfect.
like, yeah. Yeah. And then we knew we wanted to cremate the girls. Well, we looked around, at burial plots, and there's a place where you can plant a tree and then go decorate your tree and like that'll be your sort of memorial site.
Oh, okay.
There's like a little baby garden as well at one of the or at the cemetery,
Hmm.
in Saskatoon, that we were entertaining that as well. But then ultimately what we decided was, so we love the idea of the tree. Having like
Yeah.
a place to go to was important to us.
Yeah.
So we planted one in our backyard.
Oh,
And yeah, actually we went the day after we came home from the hospital, we went looking at trees.
specifically
And
for this. That's
yeah,
great. That's
so
wonderful.
we found one, and it was it's an ash tree, which I was like, is that a little on the nose? An ash tree but my husband really liked that, and
Yeah.
it was beautiful. And my family actually bought it for us as a like,
Oh,
they're not ones to be able to really know how to talk about grief, but in small ways like that,
yeah.
you found the love in
Yeah.
other ways if you
Yeah.
looked for it, right? So yeah, so we bought this tree, we planted it in the back, and it has been one of the best decisions, like
Really?
just to have a place in our yard that we could go and sit at. We have a little bench there now that we have all our initials carved into.
Oh, that's great.
Actually, yeah, so the first year on their birth, like a year it had been planted there, it's supposed to have these little red berries, and only two branches, two clusters of flowers, two clusters of berries grew the first year.
Really?
And then the second year, um, there's the tree is full of berries, except for on the two branches that had berries the year before. And it had one little cluster of flowers, and only two berries grew out of
What?
all those two branches. Yeah, it's
What?
amazing. Yeah. I
Oh,
don't know. I don't, like I said, we're not religious people, but there's something that you feel that just, I don't know, to say that there's nothing else after, I can't say that at all anymore because it felt so deliberate.
yeah.
And and like I said, I garden a lot in the summer. We have a really beautiful spot. My husband, we've kind of tinkered it over time, built this little spot in our yard. It's a very happy place,
Yeah.
for our whole family. Like even when Lenny was little, Eleanor, we call her Lenny for short.
Uh-huh.
'Cause
It's adorable.
that could be, yeah. But digging in the dirt for spiders and worms and ladybugs, and yeah, it's yeah. And there was another, on their birthday, I was, out at the tree and just looking for a sign, needing something, when I looked down, and we got these forget-me-not seeds
Hmm.
from this organization. We got a little box when we had the girls, and in there was these seeds, and I just kind of threw them in there, forgot they were there. And yeah, two little forget-me-nots popped up.
Oh
And I
man.
don't know how much of this is me is just looking for things, but it seems crazy that these,
Just the two will show up
yes,
everywhere.
yeah, in their garden, and that was
Yeah.
really special. The
Yeah.
day
So
actually,
sweet.
yeah, the day that they were cremated, we were sitting at the kitchen table and we looked out the window and we saw two double rainbows over our deck, or a double rainbow. And my husband was just like, what a nice little, send off from our girls on the day they're cremated.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, we picked them up from the funeral home, and yeah, we saw it. Lenny saw them over the deck. My husband was mowing the lawn, and she runs out and, Dad, Hazel and Violet sent us another double rainbow. Like, and I just, oh my, just to
Oh my
hear her
goodness.
say that, like she knew
Yeah.
it was a message, and like,
Oh,
yeah, there's been so many little things like that
yeah.
that just like, I don't know. I just
Yeah.
hold them pretty, yeah, pretty close.
Yes, it just brings you closer. Yeah, you feel
Yeah,
a connection, you feel the love, you feel that they're
yeah,
your family, they're your girls.
yeah, yeah,
That's
definitely.
really, really sweet.
Really special. Yeah. Sorry, I lost where I was.
No, I was gonna ask you, so after you guys had you had brought you had figured out your dates that you were gonna go in a couple of days later, and you guys were kind of prepared as you went
Yeah.
in. So you were gonna get induced. Did you guys plan on just a kind of natural induction? Does that make sense? Not natural induction, but like
Yeah.
you're gonna try and do a vaginal birth.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, And so when you went in, you and David were able to go in. So Eleanor didn't come with you guys at that time. You guys were going to labor for a little while, and then she would come later.
Yeah,
Okay.
like after the girls were
After the
born
okay.
and we had some time, then Eleanor would come, and we invited the grandparents as well if they
Okay.
come, and we wanted them to meet them if they wanted to.
Mhm.
It's just sort of such a delicate thing because I
Yeah.
mean, yes, you're coming in to meet our baby that has passed away, babies, but also we didn't know what to expect as far as their condition.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
yes.
it's a lot for people to, yeah,
Yes.
envision. Yeah. It
So
was a lot for us.
yeah, I was going to say at least the invitation was open and
Yeah.
they were allowed to come over.
Yeah. And COVID too, right? It was so nice that they were allowed to come if they wanted to. We
Yeah.
had like this giant room, lots of space. And yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I guess all the things that you might need
Yeah.
that weren't in there.
Okay, so then you checked in at the hospital and
Mhm.
tell me how that day went and how you progressed.
Yeah. So, yeah, we were planning for a vaginal birth. I think it was Cervidil, I believe was the name of the, yeah, it's like a
Mhm.
pill that they
Mhm.
insert to start the labor. And I think I was trying to hold out on an epidural. I knew that I would ultimately have an epidural just to help cushion the blow a little bit and
Yeah.
just concentrate on, yeah, everything else. So, but I was sort of holding off on that, just afraid that I would stop feeling because I
Mm.
could still feel Hazel kicking away, and
Mm.
I just didn't want to. I wanted to hold on to that as long as possible,
Yeah.
and sort of a part of that anencephaly is your reflex to swallow isn't like it normally would be with a healthy baby, and so there was just excess fluid. So it was already sort of like one tiny little torture was that you just like I didn't feel them as much as
Yeah.
you would, and there's added pressure. My hips were so achy, I remember, and just added pressure because there was more fluid.
Because of
And
more fluid.
yeah, and yeah, so we started that. I think I had 5 doses of that. I started around 6 p.m.
Okay.
and then they came every so often and gave me another dose to move things along. And around 4:30 in the morning, I finally couldn't take the pain anymore because they just those contractions just come on hard and fast.
Yeah, they do.
So we had an epidural then, and yeah, there's still another couple doses after that as well of the
Okay.
Cervidil. Yeah, because it was just an earlier term.
Yeah. And were you progressing throughout the evening, the night? I mean, I guess early.
Slowly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, slowly, but yeah. And then I remember I had a like fallen asleep. It's kind of like 5-minute increments of sleep.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I woke up and I felt like this pressure, and I asked like the nurse to like call the doctor and to look just to check where I was at, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I'm surprised that you didn't feel more pressure because yeah, Violet looks like baby is ready to come."
Oh, okay.
And yeah, yeah, and so I delivered Violet, and yeah, I remember, yeah, they put her on my chest, and Dave and I just held her, and I could feel Violet or Hazel inside of me still kicking away.
Oh.
And so we had this like it felt like it was, a minute, but it was an hour. It was almost exactly an hour between both like being born.
Okay.
We
Okay.
had an hour with Violet alone and just kind of looking at her little tiny features and feeling her sister underneath, like getting ready to come.
Yeah.
It was kind of a surreal moment to feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really like we knew what like happened with Violet, but there's so many unknowns with Hazel. We didn't know quite what she'd look like. We didn't know if she'd be alive or not. And if she
Yeah.
was alive, how long would she live for? And,
Yeah.
that's what the goal was, right? We wanted to get her here alive.
Yeah. Oh, can I just ask, when Violet was born, was she how did she look? Was she looking okay or um
Um, well, her skin was, she was very fragile.
yeah.
her skin was very dark and like noticeably, obviously, when you're sitting next to two babies like that, Hazel and
Yeah.
Violet, she was very dark, a lot darker. Her skin was starting to kind of peel away in
Slough
some
off. Yeah.
spots, and um, not to be too grotesque, but it's just a reality for us. But I didn't realize this part. It was that her brain had started to kind of liquefy a little bit,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
just natural part of decomposition. And
Yeah.
so that Lenny just calls her like gooey head.
Oh,
We're just like abrasive, but it is like, yeah, it was just, it wasn't
that's,
like a perfect little round head, like that's sort of what I was
yeah.
expecting.
Yeah.
And she was so tiny, like not even a pound. Yeah.
Oh. So you essentially did skin to skin with Violet,
hmm
which is really sweet. And I think that's really cool. Was there any indication when she was born of maybe what she passed away from at that time?
Yeah, looking back, so they took like we chose not to do an autopsy,
Um,
but they did take samples that we were fine with that. So they took some of the placenta and some of the cord.
mhm.
And when I'm looking at the pictures, I can see a noticeable difference in Hazel and Violet's umbilical cords.
Oh,
So Violet, what they had discovered was she had a hypercoil umbilical cord. So essentially a cord accident. It's just kind of tight, like it is a coil, but it
yeah.
was so tightly wound that it cut off circulation
Oh,
and stopped her heart.
oh man.
So
Okay.
yeah, I think it's more common with twins, um, but it has
Okay.
nothing to do with Hazel at all. It's just
It just the
it's just the
okay.
crappy, like,
Wow.
yeah, cards that we were dealt, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, but it was nice to have an answer,
Yeah.
to know. Yeah. And yeah, looking at the pictures, you can see very clearly that there's a difference there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what it was.
After you guys had that hour with Violet, did you guys like wrap her
Mhm.
up and just held her? And then did you proceed with um the second birth? Is that how you guys
Yeah.
decided? Or I just don't know how these things work. Like when you have twins, you're like, okay, so now we're on to the second baby.
Yeah. Well, that one I was holding Violet on my belly, and then I felt like this rush of water, and I thought I
Oh,
peed myself or something, but it
yeah,
was like Hazel's waters had broke. So
yeah,
yeah, doctor came in and checked, and then David, he took Violet and held on to her with one arm and held on to my hand with the other.
yeah,
And I just remember, I remember when I knew it was gonna like sort of imminent, and just this fear washed over me like I had never felt. Just like, I want to get her here. I don't, I want to get her here alive. And I didn't know if that was possible or going to happen. So this, like, yeah. Then I have to start pushing, and I'm pushing like so hard. I feel like I'm going to push my insides out because I just want to get her here.
yeah,
I don't want her to die. Yeah. Before I get to look in her eyes, Um, so she came out also pretty quickly. They're both like, smaller.
yeah.
So it wasn't like a normal labor would be. And so she came out, and I looked at her, and I was just kind of searching her face for any kind of sign of life. And I looked at the nurse and I said, "She's not alive, is she?" And she just shook her head. And so my husband cut the cord, and then I held them both on my chest, and we just cried together. And he was holding on to Hazel's hand, and he said, I swear I felt a little movement in her hand, and like I just have to believe that, like, he thinks that she passed away on my chest, like that her last little bit of life was on me, like holding his hand, and like I love that. I love that he felt that, you know,
Yeah.
um, and I love that idea that. So whether or not it's true, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to really ever know. They didn't check for vitals or anything like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say if they're
Yeah,
not like actively listening or anything, it's
you know, yeah.
yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just uh so did you got her wrapped up as well, or I mean, did you guys just spend some time just holding
Yeah.
her on your chest?
Yeah. They were just like on my chest, and Dave kind of crawled into bed next to me, and we just kind of like, yeah, cried and looked at every little piece of them. And um, David wanted to bath them both, which is like he was the first one to bath Eleanor too. It kind of felt like a little rite of passage for him.
Uh-huh.
So, and we wanted to sort of clean them up a little before Lenny got to the hospital too.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he took um, Violet first, no Hazel first, excuse me, and then I just kind of sat with Violet or Hazel and um, looked at her body and talked to her and then did the switch. And yeah, it was a nice moment, nice for him to have that little part of fathering,
Yeah.
parenting that you don't get to do, you have to hold on to. And yeah, and then it was maybe a couple hours later, and then we called the families and told them that they could come if they wanted to. So my mom came with Eleanor, and um, and David's parents came together too. So we sort of envisioned, splitting up the families, but the room was so big, like,
Yeah.
letting Dave's parents come in and then my mom come in,
Yeah.
and but the room was so big that it felt like there was, we had the space to
Yeah.
be able
Also,
to have everybody in there at once. So
yeah, that's a blessing
yeah,
to have
yeah,
that. Did any of your family members feel comfortable holding the girls, or
yeah.
um
Both the moms.
okay.
So my mom held them, and then Dave's mom as well. So Dave's dad didn't want to, which I understand. Like it's they're just little fragile things,
Yeah.
but he did come and meet them.
And did Eleanor hold her sisters as well?
Yeah, there's no way that she would let that happen, not being able to hold them. So she climbed right up. That was the first thing she did.
Oh, that's
And I
wonderful.
asked, like, do you want to hold one? Like, do you want to pick one to hold first? And she's Violet. So she held her, and that, like, so one thing, part of this organization, Empty Arms, they said, do you want photos done? I hear this all the time.
Hmm.
No, and I said, like, I don't think I do. I just don't want extra people in the room. It wasn't really like we could take our own pictures, is what I was
Oh,
thinking.
yeah. Okay.
And my husband said, like, let's just do it.
Okay.
Like, if we, that's what they do, and so I'm sure they'll be professional. Like, I wasn't concerned with that. I just didn't want strangers in there.
Yeah.
And so they had this person who was supposed to come, ultimately wasn't able to come that day. So one of the co-founders, who was a birth photographer, she came,
Oh.
and her name's Bree. So she wasn't supposed to be there that day, and ended up coming. And to this
Oh.
day, like, we're still great friends.
Yeah.
We now have another daughter, as you know, Abigail, and she came to that birth as well and took pictures. And
Oh.
yeah, yeah, she's yeah, it was amazing that she was able to be there, because we just had this like connection from the start. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
whoa,
anyway,
that's a
so she took
blessing.
these pictures, and so she showed up right after Violet was born. And there's these pictures, and I don't remember her even being there for it. Like,
Oh,
she was just, just like
doing her
in the
thing and just being.
background. Yeah. And so it was like, yeah, I'm so glad that he wanted that,
Yeah.
my husband, because otherwise, like, we would be robbed of these like little beautiful moments that you
Yeah.
forget about, and like looking at them, it just brings you right back there. She
Yeah.
just captured everything so perfectly. And yeah,
So,
very, very grateful for her, for them, for that whole organization, but her specifically, like, yeah,
yeah, her being able to
made
show
all the
up.
difference.
Hmm.
Yeah,
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 those pictures are really precious.
yeah.
So, and not having to mess with your phone and like,
Yeah,
please
because
take
I
a
didn't
picture of
even know where
this.
my phone was,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I was just trying. I mean, we were both focusing on like creating these memories with Eleanor, and yeah, so she hopped up there and held them, and she had these like incredible pictures of her, like little smile, that only like a little kid like that, who's just untouched by things. Like, she was just so happy to be a big sister. And it doesn't look
Oh,
like other people's families, but she was just so proud,
yeah.
and like, because she was there again, like, we were brought into a different headspace. We were
Yeah.
like, taking care of her. and, showing her like the tiny details and just being so proud. And not that you wouldn't be proud, but we weren't able to just sit there and cry and cry. We really had to soak it in for her as well. And again, like, yeah, she pulled us out of a lot of things
Oh,
that,
wow.
yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah,
yeah, special.
yeah, I'm glad that she was there because it really is, you wanna be proud of your girls, and it's so
Yeah,
hard to not be overwhelmed by the grief and the sadness and
yeah,
the entire situation.
yeah, definitely. I can see how you could, and obviously we did, but it's amazing. Like, I didn't think I could do some things like in the days following, because we're in Canada, we have like paid maternity leave.
Oh, mhm.
So I was home for 15 weeks
Oh,
paid with
that's amazing.
Eleanor. Yeah. And those days, you know, I had to shelf it. I had to shelf that pain and be a mom for Eleanor.
Yeah.
Then she'd go for her nap and I would fall apart. And it's just amazing that you're able to do that when you need to. Like, I guess it's survival.
Yeah.
But I'm a very emotional person, and like, I do wear my heart on my sleeve. And so to be able to do that, I was like amazed by myself
Yeah.
that I could do that,
Mhm.
because I was so overwhelmed. And even like everything, every day I spend with Eleanor, I think about what it should have looked like, what it could have been with these two little ones running around. And, you know, she just started kindergarten this year, and I came home and I just, like, from her drop off, and I just cried. And it's just all those monumental things in life that
Yeah.
just feel like they're missing something.
Yeah.
You just have this like tangible kind of like hole in your heart that's just always there, even in the happy moments.
Yeah.
And I want to hide from it. You want to hide from that pain just instinctively, but the pain is them, and so I don't, I embrace that as well, because it's just love. Like, it's just the absence of them is, you know,
Yeah.
is just our reality. And yeah, that makes
That's
any sense.
Yes, it does. You said it actually such so beautifully because you you associate, and I don't think people realize like all the memories that you have associated with your daughters and my son are always going to be there's always like kind
Yeah,
of a tinge of sadness like
yeah,
and that's part of the love that you have, the great love that you have for them. And um
yeah.
and
Yeah, it's
and
not all sad, right? But
no, it's not all said for
there is
sure.
this, like, yeah, it's
It's
just,
just always like a little shadow that
mhm,
it's because they're not here, and
right.
um that's hard that's hard some days for sure.
Yeah,
Tell me what other things you guys did while you were at the hospital, to
yeah.
make memories or just to spend time with them, and also along with that, did your hospital have any sort of policy about how long you could keep the girls, or like what that timeline looked like, or what you guys personally wanted it to look like?
So as far as I know, they didn't have a policy.
Okay.
We kind of just were there as long as we
Okay.
wanted to. So that was nice. Like, we didn't feel like there
R-
was a timeline. It was up to us. When we felt like the time was ready,
Great.
we were ready to go, we could go. So while Eleanor was there, we did like hand and footprints.
Oh, good.
And yeah, that was one thing Bree even the photographer came and helped us with, because like with Violet, her hands were just so fragile. I was like, I think we were just afraid to push too hard and
Yeah.
to get the imprints, and she came and helped. And there's like a tiny piece of her skin on the handprint that we made,
Oh,
like that. She was just so fragile.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that. Eleanor helped with that. And I think, like I said, I didn't have any clothes for them,
Hmm.
because I didn't know even where to start there. And Empty Arms had provided some that a lost mom had made, little outfits.
Oh, okay.
Um, and she's like, I know you said you didn't want this, but I brought some if you want to look at them. And so I showed Eleanor, and she's like, oh, excited to dress these little dolls up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's what it seemed like. And
Yeah.
so she picked them out, and her dressing them, it's one of my happiest memories from that day. I'm so grateful that they didn't listen to me and just brought them anyway, because yeah, I picture Eleanor putting their little outfits on and picking them out. And like as much as we needed things to be, to feel like we were parenting Hazel and Violet, like she needed things that were her being a big sister,
Yeah,
big sistering.
for sure.
And that was one for her, was picking out the clothes and dressing them. And she
That's
wanted
so
to help with everything at that age. You know how like
Mm-hmm.
3-year-olds can be just,
Mm-hmm.
I can do it. And yeah, and I cherish that so much. And not even the ones that they wore, but we also had another set of things that like so little hats and little tiny diapers that some lost mom had made,
Yeah.
and donated, and then we got to keep the ones that they wore, and we put
Okay.
them in different ones
Oh,
to
good.
go to be cremated in.
Okay.
So things like that just like you don't think about in that moment, but in retrospect, like all these things that we were gifted came from like this pain, right? Like I did actually donate. I made some little outfits after as well because I was just like needing something to. There's nothing you can do to thank this organization for everything
Yeah.
that they did for us, but it was like a small little thing that I could do was I know how to sew, and so I made little outfits as well because it was such a beautiful moment for us. Yeah. And so we did that, and then my mom took Eleanor home a few hours later, and then Dave and I stayed with Hazel and Violet for the night, and then left in the morning. So that night we just kind of sat with the girls, took off their little outfits, and we did a scent memory, which is another thing I never
Oh,
would have thought of.
yeah.
But this empty arms suggested it, and so I went and picked out like this lotion that actually Eleanor had worn as a baby
Mm-hmm.
because I love the smell of it, and now like if Dave and I are particularly just missing them, we put it on, and it's like it just takes you back in this visceral kind of way
Yes.
that
Yeah.
I can feel their skin when I smell it. If that like makes any sense to you. I don't know if you were able to do that with Brannon,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, smell is so powerful. So
yeah.
powerful. And it does, brings you back.
And a lot of this stuff you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it just in case it brings me some kind of peace
Mm-hmm.
later.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad I did it. Like I never would have even thought to do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we put the lotion on them and just kind of like studied their little bodies and took some pictures and got them sort of dressed the way that we were going to send them off, I guess. And another thing I didn't know you could do was we were able to actually, we had the choice to, we could leave them in the room. We could have like a nurse come and take them when we were ready, or we could have the funeral home come, or we could take the girls to the funeral home
Oh,
ourselves.
okay.
So that's
Okay.
what we decided to do.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and it was like leaving the hospital without them was not something that I wanted to do, but I didn't know how David would feel about that
Yeah.
when I suggested it to him or when I offered him like the sort of what we had to decide. And he was like, "Well, I want to take them there. There are children. I want to take them myself." And the fact that because if he said no, I would have been okay with that, I have a lot of fight in me either like to like really fight for things that I needed or wanted, but I'm so lucky. Like we're really in sync about everything that we had wanted.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even question it. He's just like, well, I want to take them. Like
Yeah.
again, another parenting thing we get to do, right? Is like take them, send them off together, and yeah. So we got to leave the hospital with them we wrapped them up in their little
And there's
blankets. And,
swaddles.
we asked Dave's mom to, she's also sews a little bit. So she made some blankets. She made 2 blankets for them, but we just put them in one together and in the dresses that Eleanor had dressed them in. And Empty Arms gave us these little tiny bunnies.
Oh,
So they like Eleanor gave them 2 and she kept 2 and
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So we kind of spent the night with them that way, just kind of like, yeah, making memories with the 4 of us and crying and getting them ready for the next day.
Yeah. Kat, a couple of things I wanted to make sure that I asked you about. So they were born on August 29th.
Mhm.
What time of the day were they? What time was Violet born and what time was Hazel born?
So Violet was born, it was 12:36, I think, and it
Okay.
was like 1:32, something like that. They're
Okay.
very almost an hour
Yeah.
exactly apart when they were
Yeah.
born. Yeah,
That's great.
in the afternoon. Yeah,
And they were both how big? Do you have that?
yeah. So Violet was 28 centimeters
Oh,
long
yeah. Yeah.
and like 0.75 pounds, so she wasn't even a pound.
Yeah. Little. Okay.
Tiny little thing, yeah. And then Hazel is 32.5 centimeters and 1.37 pounds, so just a little over. Like so,
Yeah.
right. When
Just
you see
little
the
bitty.
pictures, like yeah, they're one is certainly bigger than the other, but they're
Hmm.
not that much longer and not that much
Yeah.
heavier. They're
They're
just so
just,
teeny.
yeah,
Yeah.
sweet little things.
Hmm.
And tell me about when you guys um, chose their names. I know that you
Right.
didn't want to know their gender for a minute, and then
Hmm.
then you decided that you wanted to be able to at least call them maybe
Yeah.
this is who she is, and
Yeah.
so can you tell me about how you guys decided on the names and where those came from?
Yeah. So I was very certain that they were boys.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I always think that. I don't know why, but yeah, I was wrong, obviously. I thought that with Eleanor too. Um, so I had picked out the perfect boy names. So baby B was Hazel was going to be Benjamin, which was just a name that we loved,
Mm,
and it was like our favorite boy name, and just that it started with a B felt right.
yeah.
And then I picked Noah for
Oh.
baby A, and I didn't. It just kind of this is a name that was never on our list, and this name popped into my head one night. I was sitting outside, and I mentioned it to Dave, and he's like, "Yeah, that's a really pretty name." And I looked up the meaning, and the meaning is like stillness, and I just thought that was so perfect because she had already passed at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, yeah, walk in with this confidence of knowing the names, and then we found out they're girls, and we're just leaving the parking, like we're in the parking lot, and David said, "We need to pick out names. Like, what about?" So Hazel was just our one of our contenders with Eleanor when we were picking her name. It
Oh,
was like
okay.
one of our top choices.
Yeah.
So he's about what about Hazel and Violet? And Violet just because they're both colors and
Yeah.
they sound nice, and we love that like little old lady names like
Yeah.
Eleanor, like
They're not old lady
um,
names. They're traditional.
they're classic,
They're
right? They're not,
classic,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And so yeah, so he just said them immediately, like he had them on the tip of his tongue this whole time, and he never mentioned it to me.
Yeah.
So and then just hearing them together, I'm like, that's perfect. Like
Yeah.
I love them. I love those names, and
Yeah.
yeah.
They're
So
beautiful. They're just
thank
beautiful.
you. And then their middle names. Violet Jane and Hazel Marie. They're both middle names from the grandparents. So
Oh, wonderful.
Jane is Dave's mom's middle name, and Marie is my mom's middle name.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
nice family
yeah,
tie there.
little connection in there. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was,
Mhm.
yeah, sounded nice together too. So yeah.
Yeah. So they were born on the 29th, and then you guys
Hmm.
discharged the next day, is that right?
Yeah,
And brought them to the funeral home. Will you tell me a little bit about how that went?
yeah, yeah. So left the hospital, and I was sort of like, just dreading running into anybody because I had them just wrapped in this little blanket, holding on to them. And like, if anybody peeks over, they're,
Yeah.
it's a shocking thing to see. And
Mhm.
I was just dreading that. But yeah, again, professionalism maybe is all it is, but it was so considerate that there was nobody around when we walked through because it's
Mhm.
quite a long walk to the elevator, even. And I think it was orchestrated that way. My neighbor actually, she used to be a labor and delivery nurse,
Mhm.
and when she knew we were going in, she kind of called into the charge nurse, and I think like asked for, give them it's for my friends and please take good care of them. And she had mentioned that that was something that they often do, is like they're just kind of aware.
That's great.
And so that was nice. Yeah. We were kind of tucked away in this beautiful room overlooking the river, and like, um, yeah. And then all the nurses that we had were like, I don't know. these women, amazing. They were
Yeah.
amazing. I remember all their names, and after they were born, I sent little just cookies. I didn't know what to send. I just wanted to thank them for what they did for us, and just a little note saying like that, how significant it was what you did, and thank you. And yeah, I think that's a big takeaway for us is like just like saying the things that you think, because you assume they know how important their work is. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know if people say it, especially in the midst of their grief, you don't think to say those things. But yeah, when I thought it, I just did it. Otherwise, it would have got lost in the
Yep.
shuffle of everything in
Yep.
life, right? So yeah. So anyway, so we get to the elevator, walking to the car. Um, I remember this lady, seeing her pushing her stroller, and me holding these babies who were gone. And I felt like I was so proud of what I was doing, because it was so difficult. Um, but obviously heartbroken to see that too. Just and I think that happens still today. Like, whenever I see twins, I'm like,
Yeah.
there's just like a little pang that's just like, it's beautiful, but it's so sad, and I miss them so much. Yeah. So then we drove again. This is another ride like of silence. We just drove over the river, and going over that bridge for the first time, I remember after was like it all, yeah, that was a very difficult one for me too.
Yeah.
So from the hospital to the funeral home. Um, and then I think getting out of the car too, Dave and I we just knew that there was like minutes left, that we get to hold them. And for him, it was like, for me, it was opening the car door. For him, it was opening the door to the funeral home. Like, we both have these moments that we're just like, okay, this is happening. Like,
Yeah.
we have to say goodbye now. Everything leading up to that day, we knew this moment was going to come, you know, but it's just a very different thing when you have to open the door to do it. Yeah, so we went and met, and it's like the funeral home is Saskatoon Funeral Home. It's run by a family, and they don't charge for cremation of infants, and
Mm-hmm.
they were so just kind. I mean, again, these people in this industry, like, this is my only experience so far with funeral home, but
Mm-hmm.
they were incredible and so kind. And my husband dealt with them in the days after
Yeah.
we had dropped off the girls, and they were just fantastic. And yeah, and so she sat with us, and just said, we'll take good care of your girls, and gave them each a kiss, and um, told them we love them, and yeah, and then they were gone. Yeah, and I think, like, yeah, Dave's like, I asked him after, I'm like, did you hold them? Like I just had this panic of like, did we do everything we wanted to do, And he said, I just remember you kissing them, and that makes me so happy to see that, like, giving them a kiss goodbye, and just those little things that you hold on to in your memory that, like, yeah, he was like, I don't remember really. There's so much, like, gray area in grief,
Yeah.
blackout periods of like, I don't really remember that, like, what I said or what I did in these moments. But yeah, yeah,
That's a good one to hold on to, though.
yeah,
The little kisses
yeah,
before. Did you end up having a funeral or a memorial for them?
yeah. So again, because we like had the time to sort of like figure out what felt right for us,
Yeah.
right? So we decided to have just a little celebration of their life in our backyard
Mm.
by the tree.
Yeah.
So we wanted it to feel like a celebration. I've been to many, many like funerals in my life, and they're always just so somber and sad. And for our family, the situation was terribly tragic and sad, but like, it's also the story of like, of true deep love, and that's what we wanted people to remember. And Eleanor, we really wanted her to feel like proud of what she did
Yeah.
because we were so proud of her and how she handled it all and how, we did it together. And so we had like I think we had a little bouncy castle. I think we had that out and like invited a few like close families and their children to come. And um, when we bought the tree, we were walking through the checkout and they had this little area with ornaments, and we found this little like a glass, hand blown glass,
Uh-huh.
with a tree in the middle, and it said like "Sisters Tree, Sisters Forever" or something like that
Oh,
was the meaning of it. And so we bought that and hung it
yeah.
on the tree. And then so that sort of sparked the idea that whoever came to the celebration of life could bring an ornament if they wanted to
Oh.
hang on the tree.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was really special what like people would come up with to bring, and some of them wouldn't stay out there through our winters in Canada. So we have a little tree in Eleanor's room, and she has a lot of them hung on there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that was really nice and special for people to get
Do
creative. And
do
yeah,
something. Yeah.
one family brought like little rocks to put around the base of the tree, which I thought
Oh,
was like a pretty cute little idea.
yeah.
And yeah, yeah. So that was nice. So we had yeah, so both our families were there, and a few very close friends and their children, and just kind of had everybody kind of brought us a appetizer, I think. And so it
And
made
just
it it took the
yeah.
pressure off.
Yeah.
And creating that little space for the tree, we had to we have raised garden beds. We had to move some things and like move around some dirt and lift some heavy things, and
Yeah.
took a lot of manual labor. But I think for David, that was like a very healing,
Mm,
labor of love to prepare this area for like,
yes.
again, like a parenting thing that he was able to give for them and for our family, the people left behind, um, just to do this for them. And so he really focused on that and like enjoyed doing that. So we had this beautiful new area for the tree. And yeah, so we went out to the tree and said a few words and read a poem and invited people to hang things if they wanted to. And yeah, it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It sounds like a beautiful day and
it
fun.
was. And it
Kind of
was
sounds
beautiful
fun.
weather too.
Oh, was it?
Like it's always a little dodgy that time of year in
Yeah.
Canada. But it was a perfect day. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Did you guys were you able to pick up their ashes by that time, I'm assuming, or okay.
Yeah. Yes. So we picked them up. It was a few days after we had dropped them off. And
Oh,
the
okay.
celebration of life was somewhere, I want to say about a month after
Okay.
they were born. So we didn't rush it.
Yeah.
We just wanted to well, we had to prepare our sort of little area back there
Yes.
too. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we
Oh,
didn't put any ashes by the tree.
yeah. But just
Yeah.
you had
Because I know
them though.
yeah, we did have them at home. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And they sat in their little box from the funeral home for a long time. We didn't really know. We were just looking for, an urn, but that didn't look like an urn. We didn't know what
Yes.
we were looking for
Yes.
really. And just surprised. Everything is surprising when you imagine ashes. You imagine ashes, but it was just, this tiny little box
So,
of ashes.
mhm.
And they were cremated together too, and we were just amazed how little there was, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
um, actually took a pottery class, and the instructor, it was for a mug, and I asked if I could try to make an urn instead, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll help you." And the idea was sort of like, we'll see how it turns out. If we
Yeah.
like it, we'll use that, and if we don't, like whatever, we'll put Q-tips in it or
Yeah.
something.
Whatever. Yeah.
And yeah, and it turned out, and my husband loved it, and so that's where they are now.
Oh, wonderful.
And yeah, and I made a little piece on the side of it to put dried flowers in, and I
Oh,
picked those forget-me-nots that popped up on their
yeah.
birthday, and I dried those and put them in there. So
Oh, that is cool.
yeah, it was cute. Yeah,
That yeah, that sounds lovely.
yeah,
Kat, thank you so much for sharing your twins' stories, like Hazel and Violet. I can't imagine how devastated you guys have been without them, and but so grateful to hear their story today and for taking the time today. So thank you so, so much.
Oh, thank you. I like this I'm so grateful that this exists because of how it helped me and David in particularly. I think the very first episode of was little Jeff
Yeah.
had like a diagnosis that they knew he wouldn't survive, and we that was the first one we both listened to, and it hooked me and David too. Just like so I don't know if they ever hear this episode, but that was incredibly helpful for us, and it felt just like that you're less alone. Any little thing that you can hold on to that you feel less alone in this is like
Yeah.
it can save you, right, in some of the days, and that one definitely did. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
We
just
will
really grateful to be a part of, to be able to share them. And
we are always so grateful to our parents that are willing to share, because this is not an easy road to do.
yeah,
As you probably know, it was hard to probably tell their story. But
yeah,
hopefully also good
yeah.
to get that recorded. So thank you again, Kat. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.